Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast, or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game, the first course today. And thank you for supporting the show. All right, welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is author and father of two, Steven Lentz. How you doing, Steven?
Doing well, thank you, Adam. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. Like we were just talking, the weather here in St. Louis has been overcast and humid and threatening to rain. We all keep hoping it's going to rain, but it doesn't rain. And then you're in a heat wave, you said, out there in the Seattle area, so that's got to be unusual for you.
It's true. I actually went out and got myself a little tiny pool for the kids to play in. But then it was like from OfferUp, like a 10-foot one. So I didn't have any way to blow it up. Because blow it up. So I cut a water bottle in half and took the hairdryer and I stuck it in there. And 10 minutes later, got an inflated pool.
Is it the ones that have multiple rings, so you to fill them up individual rings?
Yeah, there are three rings to it. So I filled the first one. I was like, this doesn't look right. I'm like, oh man, there's another one. So I got the next one, but then there was the top and the bottom, so I'd missed the middle. And then my wife was just looking at me like, this guy. But I got it.
Yeah. Hey, we'll get there.
Right.
Yeah, we have one, a plastic one in our backyard, and my neighbors next door, a couple weeks ago, we sat outside and projected on the fence a movie, and we decided we're going to get a whole bunch of kiddie pools, fill them with water, and watch Jaws.
Man, I think that sounds phenomenal.
So, Steven, how did you get into gaming?
Well, I guess grew up into games. So my first memories of playing games was probably third, fourth grade, kind of right after memories really start, I suppose. But we always Friday night was playing games, and go-tos we talked earlier was Mille Bornes, Risk, Acquire. Not a whole lot of Monopoly. Some Sorry,
man,
my brother.
Acquire is on my Grail list. I can't find a good decent priced copy.
You need to get, so they remade it. Because I did the same thing. I was like, I need to get my hands on Acquire again. But it used to be a tile board with a little, they fit into it, and it was really cool. But they redid it, and it's just cardboard that sits on top of cardboard, and it's kind of lame. But the game itself, it's a cool game. And they changed a couple of and I think it's just from licensing reasons. I think Luxor got changed to Samson or something like that. But it's the game is legit. It's a phenomenal game, and I love it. Yeah, so I grew up playing.
No, it's definitely. Yeah, it Acquires on is in every list of best games ever, and I'm like, I just Sid Saxon, and I'm like, I gotta get it. I keep hoping in all my Goodwill and other consignment shops finds, I keep hoping that I'll just stumble upon it one day and just be like, oh, and grab it.
Oh man, if you can find the original print with the plastic board with the tiles that fit into it, gold mine.
That's the old 3M, the 3M bookshelf. Yeah, I came across your book because I did say you were an author. Mm-hmm. And your book is called The Guide to Board Gaming, Getting Past Candyland. And the way I came across your book was a past guest, John Michael Garapy, who wrote the book Winning Streak. He and I started this email thread of board game books. And mine were this insane shelf next to me here. And he sent me this list of all these ones on Kickstarter. And so you had yours on Kickstarter, and then I clicked the buy now or follow or whatever, and it popped me over to Amazon. It was right there for Kindle, and I'm like, wow, one click buy, send it to my Kindle, and it was waiting on me when I got home. So your book is about how to get your kids into gaming.
Absolutely.
From a very early age. And it's not a very long book. And I think it took me 2 days, 2 nights. I don't know. Not very long to read it.
So you took your time then.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to take it all in at once, It's little bitty bites, half and half. So I really enjoyed the book. And one of the things that resonated with me was how you say to kind of let them play with the game, play with the pieces, and get familiar with it before ever trying to teach the game. And my daughter, who's 2.5, when my son and I try to play a game, she's got her own deck of cards.
Yep.
So when we sit down to play cribbage, which is I play the classics right now. Cribbage and backgammon are the two big ones. Dude, but when we sit down to play...
I will go on a tangent on cribbage and backgammon with you. I freaking love backgammon. I grew up, my dad and I played backgammon all the time when I was little, and my wife and I play that's our travel game. We'll take our little cribbage board and deck, and we go everywhere with it.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't even need the board, because you can just keep score, but where's the fun in that? You got to have the pegs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, I'm going to throw this out there at you real quick. Army Man backgammon. Look into it.
I'm already in.
Yeah, you literally use little green and tan Army Men, and depending on their stance and their weapon is what they can, it's how fast they can move, how far they can shoot, and what their defense is.
Interesting. I was just thinking taking Super Dungeon Explorer minis and just replacing the little
oh no,
and heroes.
Oh no, this is way beyond that. To the point where my son and I are looking for specific sets of army men that have army men in certain poses so that can maximize the game.
That's cool.
It's very nerdy. I don't know if cool's the word I'd use.
Nerd, I think it's cool.
So, my daughter, when we play cribbage, we give her own deck, and we learned you have to give her a different color back, because sometimes she'll throw her cards out there and you'll forget which one.
Yeah.
Wait, this isn't the card I played. And then when we play games with dice, she'll sit there and roll dice. We've got a dice tower. She'll just drop dice down it and everything. So getting her involved early, getting her exposed early. Again, she'll play Candyland. She's 2.5, so for her it's more just kind of popping around the board and eating the candy off the board, But like you said, it's getting them involved and exposed early. So yeah, I also like how you said you may have to sacrifice a game or two in there.
It kills me on the inside, but yeah, absolutely. I've already written it off. Some of my Days of Wonder games, I love Days of Wonder. They're beautiful games, but I'm like, you know what? It's not going to make it to maturity. This one's going to have to. It's gone. But I mean,
this is going to have to be replaced.
Yeah, small sacrifice though. To get my kids to want to play games and start enjoying games, learn about I'll buy a second copy of Small World. No, hands down, that's a no-brainer for me.
Haven't had to buy a second copy yet, but it's because I'm not buying a second copy of Candyland. you don't need a second copy of Candyland. Who cares if you have half the cards, okay? There's only one purple. You get it, you're going to jump all across the board, But yeah, I'm not buying a second copy of Candyland. I'll protect some of them, but, Candyland. We have another one. I think it's called Hoot Owl Hoot.
Yeah, we got Hoot Owl Hoot.
Yeah, right. That one's fun. Is it, meant for adults? No. But is it fun? Yes. You can sit there and... play with the kids and teach it, they just kind of move them. Once I kind of taught my son that there's some strategy, because you've got only so many turns, because if the certain amount of sun cards come up or something, the game ends.
Yep.
So I'm like, you got to be more.
Always take the owl in the back, bud.
Yeah. Unless it puts him in the nest, the owl in the back is your best move. That's been fun. So the idea for your book, where did that one come from?
No, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of my friends that have kids, and obviously I had small kids, and I was like, I love playing games with them. I do these things with them. And I'd see different threads of people asking how can I get my kids to play a different game? Or how do I, get a game that's more advanced than Candyland, which is why the game's called Getting Past Candyland, right? Because everyone plays Candyland or Shoots and Ladders. But as far as like, how do I transition to something that I want to play? You know, it has more strategy and more depth. So I was thinking, like, how can I help other parents teach their kids how to play games in a way that is healthy for the family and gets the kids involved and invested and wanting more and how to grow. So that's kind of where it came about. And then just put it out into paper and sent it out there. Put it
out into the void.
It happened.
Yeah, just put it out there into the void and see what happens. And
Kickstarter, it didn't fund, so it was self-published on Amazon, and there it was.
No, I'm sorry I didn't see it when it was up there, because I would have backed it without a doubt. So John Michael Garapi and I are now like book club, book friends. I don't know what you want to call it. So now whenever we see a board game book, we're like, hey, check this one out. You know, hopefully you'll get another book together, and we'll definitely. Well, I know at least he and I will read it and push it to other people we know. So
I am planning one more book, and it's how to get your friends to play games. Right? Seriously, right? Like, so the first one's how to get your kids to play games, and the other is how to get your friends who don't play games to play games.
Right? I don't have friends that don't play games. I've just cut ties with them already.
That's fair. I mean, country losses in the head, right? Like,
yeah.
Got to cull it down. Oh. But I mean, there's a lot of friends that I'm like, hey, like. Or like, you know, you have your buddies and maybe your wife plays games with you, but like, I would really like to like get all of us together and not just, you know, have Barb sit in the corner drinking her wine, giving us evil eye while we're trying to pull out like Small World or something. So just like, how do you get friends invested that are interested in a way that doesn't put them off? Because adults are very different than kids. So that's in the works. I don't have a timeline or anything like that. And I've got it decently lined out, but eventually.
Right. No, I can't wait, because that'll be a fun one to read as well. I think that I always, you know, everybody says gateway games, and to me, the best gateway game, the game I've had the most success with, both with adults and kids, is just King of Tokyo.
Interesting.
Because it's such a recognizable mechanic of roll the dice like Yahtzee. Roll the dice, roll the dice, roll the dice. Take and pick what you want, move them around, and then, you know, score it. So take my energy cubes, take my points, punch some monsters and whatever, you know, and then move on. And I think what really kind of draws people into that is like the kaiju fight, the punching, the back and forth, you know. And so when you get that going, like, adults like it, kids like it. And then once you get, you know, all the expansions and all the monster packs and whatever else is out there, because like I said, I spend my money poorly or wisely, depends on how you look at it. Man, there you can add so much depth to just King of Tokyo, and just the plain vanilla game is a great way to just like kind of bring people in, and I've had a lot of luck and a lot of success with that game.
Interesting. I feel like the game that I've always found that really brings in adults has been Settlers.
Oh yeah,
I liken that to the weed of board games. Like it's the gateway drug to the board game collection. It's just light enough that like everyone can grasp it. It doesn't have like super intense direct conflict, so like the people who are kind of shy away from that aren't put off. But it still has enough that you can really screw someone over. So the other people who are kind of shysty really like it too. And I mean, I feel like it just kind of appeals to just about everyone until you sit around for 4 hours asking for wheat. So.
So go ahead and finish the name of the game, Settlers of.
See, I was dreading this because I grew up with. I don't even know how to say this one right, like top ramen or top ramen, because I grew up and my mom says everything wrong, and so I grew up saying top ramen, and then I got to like age 25, and then all of a sudden everyone was mocking me because I said top ramen once. So like, ramen, the hell is that? And I was like, ramen. They're like, that's right it is. I was like, so I feel like I initially started saying Settlers of Catan. Because, I mean, that's what it looks like to me. But I got browbeaten, now it just comes out as Catan. So, I don't think you're not going to get a straight answer on that one. So.
Way to dodge that question. Perfect.
I'm a product of my environment.
Yeah. But yeah, so you are a fireman. You said that earlier before we started recording. Do you play games there at the firehouse?
I wish. The guys on my shift don't really play many games, so I think getting something like Mille Bornes or Grass. I think Grass would be. It's just funny enough that they'll be like, "Oh, I got to play this," right? So I think that'll be a winner. But
Yeah.
I feel like a Firehouse classic and a staple is cribbage. There's a lot of guys that play cribbage. I like card games, euchre, 500 spades, but cribbage seems to be the equalizer when it comes to those games.
Did you say euchre?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Euchre is a game out there in Seattle area?
I don't know if it's a game out here in Seattle. I grew up a military brat, right? So I lived all over the country. But I actually found euchre when I was studying abroad in Latin America. So Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, and Guatemala. And
interesting.
The group that I was traveling with, they played euchre. So they introduced me to it, and then we played that the entire time.
Interesting. No, I grew up in Indiana, and that's like a huge game in Indiana.
I love it.
And I went to college, and it was like, we played in high school, we played in college. Like euchre was like the game. So when you
like that. So I mean, it's like nothing.
Yeah. So when you said euchre, I'm like, what? Euchre?
Yeah, I don't.
So
euchre.
So you haven't tried Flashpoint with the guys? Too real?
No, I mean, we don't really do much like fire related stuff, but I mean, we'll watch Cops all day long, right? Like, give us a good Cops drama, we'll be there. But I feel like we stay away. We usually shy away from the fire stuff. I don't know why. It's just kind of like, nah.
You see enough of that?
Yeah.
So if I came to your house right now, what game is currently sitting out on your table?
Actually, we just cleaned up Kingdom Rush. So that one was a Kickstarter because I also really enjoy video games. And so Kingdom Rush is an app game on the iPad or iPhone or whatever you have. And Lucky Duck Games made a board game out of it. And if you give me a good thematic game, I'm in. Like, it doesn't really matter what. Or like, if you're like deck building or doing like, making an army or whatever, like, I'll sabotage myself to make a super thematic army. Like, I'm just going to go all dragons, even though they're not the best, because I think it's cool. So they made Kingdom Rush. It just looked gorgeous. I was like, I've got to get this. Like, I like the game. It looks fun. And it's cool. So I immediately just backed their other one coming out. Elemental Uprising, I think is what it's called. But yeah, that one just.
Yeah, they did some good stuff. Their Vikings Gone Wild was a fun game.
Yeah,
they did one before that. They did one before that too. I can't remember what it was called. Lucky Duck Games. That's kind of their thing. Is they kind of take apps and turn them into games, and hey, if it works, it works.
They did a great job with it, so I'm very impressed. I like it, and I'm not there yet, but I know that at some point I'll be the guy who wants the solo game by himself because there's no one to play with, and that's one that you can do. So I'm excited to pull that one back out. And
there you go. So when you're playing a game and you have to pick a color, what color do you gravitate towards?
Oh, red every time. Every time.
Yeah. If people pick other colors, like why?
Oh yeah. Well, I like to say stupid, controversial stuff. So as soon as I take it, I always loudly announce communist red. And yeah. I'm in no way a communist, but I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah, you know why I want this.
Yeah.
I'm inviting Steve over.
You took a wheat? You mean our wheat?
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I like red. Red's my favorite. But I find myself, if the orange is available, I'll play orange. When I get, to a game that doesn't have red or orange, I'm like,
yeah, I'll take anything other than yellow. Just don't give me yellow.
We have a guy in the office. That's his color because like nobody ever wants yellow, so he's like, "I'll play yellow," and he just always plays yellow. Like we set up a game of Ticket to Ride. We just throw him the bag of yellow trains because we know he'll play yellow.
I mean, that's like a power flex all on its own, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm not afraid of yellow. Give it to me.
Yeah, it's like when you play Monopoly, I'll be that shoe. No one wants the shoe. I'll take the shoe. Even all the books, the person who takes the shoe feels bad about themselves and grew up poor and blah, blah. Man, give me that shoe. Yeah, I'll show you what a shoe is. So if you could get your Firehouse to play and you had 60 minutes, what is your go-to 60-minute 1 hour game?
I think probably something like I mean, I've already mentioned a few times, but Small World, I think, is a really good one for that. Just because every game is very different. Just because however you mix up the races is different, and the map, I mean, the map is the same, but what happens in it is always changing. So I like games that there's not like a way to win. You know, like my buddy got Stone Age, and he was talking it up, and he played it like 10 or so times. He was like, oh, this game's so good, I'm going to crush you, whatever. And I got there and I read the rules and looked at it and I go, I'm pretty sure I know how to win this game. And I blew him out of the water. And I did it another 2 times. He's like, this game is cheating. And I'm like, no, there's just a way to win. Like, so
once you find that dominant strategy, you know, games can be worn out. That's why sometimes I feel like expansions kind of help that, right?
Absolutely.
Like Catan, you know, even the base game, there's people that are really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But you throw a couple of the expansions or variants or scenarios or whatever, just tweak it just a little bit, and man, it can throw everybody off.
Oh yeah, I mean, you just do a random map with random numbers, and all of a sudden there's no good placements, and then it's just, you know, that's up in the air.
Yeah, we would even go online to this website. I don't even think it's around anymore, but it was like called CatanMaps.com, and we used to like they had like special pieces with special rules. They had like a volcano that you could put in the board, and it had different rules and stuff. But I mean, you could just take something as simple as the Fisherman of Catan and replace the desert with the pond or the lake or whatever, and then put the fish border on the outside, and the game's completely different.
Yeah.
Because the people that are like the purists that are really, you know, good at the game, all of a sudden you throw in that little monkey wrench at them and they're like, ah. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's just another resource.
Yeah.
Literally, it's a crutch, but, you know, whatever. So a 30-minute, a half-hour game.
I mean, it's tough because I feel like a lot of the games that I play is all developed, like, centered around what I can play with my kids at this point. But I think...
it's all I play with. All I play with is my son, so I'm always looking for a good 30-minute game.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's days of like, man, you just give me like Mech Warrior with the grid map, like the old school Mech Warrior, right? You're in there, you're like looking at the rule book and like, I'm going to add lasers and large rockets, and like, you know, 7 hours in and you've played like 2 battles. Like I'm in for that kind of stuff, but I feel like with small kids, I'm like, what can I play in 30 or 40 minutes? That's not.
I was trying to figure out how you're playing Mech Warrior in 30 minutes, but you know.
No. I mean, you take the pieces out and you go pew 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 pew, and you're around the house. And then you put them back. Yeah, you put them back. You know, it hasn't come to the table in a while, but I think Sentinels of the Multiverse. Because my wife is super into cooperative games. She's competitive and she wants to win, but she won't do what's necessary to win. So, say like in Catan, you're building, right? And you're both going for the same spot. She'll be like, oh, he wants that spot. And you're like, hey, does anyone have a brick? And he looks at your cards like, he's got everything but the brick he needs to build this thing. And she'll like, I'll trade you a brick. And she'll give you the card to build this like screw over. And you're like, babe, come on. Like, I was like, So I've learned that it's not Settlers of Catan, it's Build With Me. The Scrabble's not Scrabble, it's Spell With Me, right? Like, so I've had to like change the things. But, like, here's what we're doing together. So Sentinels it's a great... Again, I go back to thematic, but it's a sweet thematic game that is cooperative. You have your own decks, and it's a lot of fun. So I'd say that's my 30-minute game.
Yeah, I haven't played Sentinels in a long time. Well, probably 4 or 5 years ago was the last time I played it. So it's been a minute.
That's a hot minute for sure. And I mean, Sentinels goes back too, right? Like, there's no one way to win, and you're kind of like, we're gonna fight this bot. Like, the boss is always different, the environment's different, your hero team you go up against them is different. And...
tons of different decks, tons of different. Again, a lot of add-ons and expansions and stuff you can swap in and out.
Exactly,
it's kind of like it's like Dominion, but not. You know, it's like the decks are already built, but you can have different. Like you're saying, different battles, different bosses, you know, different decks, different characters, that whole shebang.
Yep, and I don't have to fight my wife, so that's a win.
It's always good, you know.
I want to be married. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all I want.
Seems like a fair thing to ask. It doesn't seem that hard.
Don't leave me future playmates. I mean, my kids. Like,
yeah. So I did a cross stitch. She was on the show a while back, Katie Pierce. She does like board game themed cross stitches. And one of them she had was like, "You're my favorite opponent." and it has like a die with like little hearts for pips. So I sat up in the up here in my attic dungeon, my attic, yeah, and I cross stitched it, and I got done with it, and I asked my son like, "Hey, who do you think I should give this to?" And he goes, "Me," and I go, "Well, yeah, I made this for you." And he goes, "Really?" So it's framed and sitting in his room now as this cross that says, "You're my favorite opponent." So
that's awesome. I love that. I really do.
Yeah, he loved it. Like I said, Katie Pierce made it, and it was just on her Etsy shop for cheap. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I set up here and just cross stitched away. So a hidden gem or guilty pleasure game. These are the ones that we talked about earlier. These are the ones that get me in trouble because I go off and buy them because I'm like, ooh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I originally heard that, I thought immediately of cribbage, right? Because I was like, like I'm on a board game show and I talk about a card game. Like I feel like it's no, I feel like that doesn't count anymore. Dirty. Oh. I don't know. Hidden gem. How about Dinosaur Tea Party?
Oh yeah, the restoration games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Artwork is just phenomenal. I love it. It's cool, and it's like a better version of Guess Who.
Yeah, exactly. It is a lot of fun. I love it. I like restoration games. I think they've done a great job. Downforce is just phenomenal, and Dinosaur Tea Party. They did the remake of Forbidden Island a couple years ago.
Ooh, what was that one called?
It was called Forbidden Island, and it's just it's got a huge board presence, 3D, plastic board, and the Volcar rotates, and the marbles go everywhere, and they've got all kinds of add-ons to it. And I'm glad I didn't back it all in because that was a lot of money, and I'm glad I didn't spend it. But it's a fun game. If you can find it for a decent price, it's a good game with kids because it's just kind of like you're moving around and you're dropping the fireballs down out of the Volcar, and their marbles are rolling down, knocking your characters over and wrecking bridges, and you're trying to take pictures. So
yeah, isn't that Escape from Fireball Island? Okay.
Yep. I would love to see Restoration Games redo 13 Dead End Drive.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, that's a great hidden gem game that I feel is like less than a hidden gem now because they just did a re-release on it, like a 25th anniversary edition, because some of us are old and have the original. And because my sister, yeah, I think the farming game. I can't. I'm just waiting on it I'm waiting to get caught up on my shelf of shame, but that's still on my list.
Just wait till you plant corn and taste there. That's all I can say.
I can't wait. This game. Now I'm like, man, between you and I think it was Chris Anderson was bringing that game up. I'm like, man, I should go hunt this game down for reals.
It's a funny, silly game. It's good, but if you play by the rules, you'll just hate life.
Well, but that's what like Chris said. You start off in debt, and it's just trying to minimize debt. And I'm like, so it's like life.
Essentially,
okay. So, one of my last question here. I think you kind of already said it. You're a Kickstarter creator and a Kickstarter backer, so that's a both. So good for you.
Yeah, I didn't really consider myself a Kickstarter creator because I was just doing the book, and that just seemed like a good platform to try to do up front. But that's the only thing.
How's it doing on Amazon? I'm curious.
Honestly, I don't know. I put it on there, and I think like once or twice, like a month, I get like $2 from Amazon or something like that. It's
well, you got $2 from me. I read the book.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna treasure.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a link. Don't worry, I'm gonna put a link in the show notes for sure. Like I said, it's a good read if you've got kids. If you're trying to get them into gaming, it's a great read. One of the other things I took a note when reading the book, you mentioned that it helped your kids learn to read.
Yeah, the big one. The little one, not so much. We're starting with her, but the big one, yeah.
So my son, we used to watch Will Wheaton's Tabletop, We watched every episode that was appropriate for children. There were a few that are not, but for the most part, they are. And we would watch a game, and he was like, I don't know, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd get done watching it, and he looked at me. It was Fortunes of Glory, which I still have not bought it. I want to buy that game so bad, but it goes in that its print run is so small, and it's only available in such a narrow window. But we get done watching it, and we're both like, this game looks fantastic. And he looks at me, though, point blank, he goes, I need to learn to read.
Perfect.
So board gaming has really helped prompt him to learn how to read.
That's great, yeah.
But yeah, when I saw the learning to read, it reminded me of that time we got done watching that episode, and he's like, I need to learn to read. And I'm like, well, if you learn to read, then we could play more complicated games because you could keep the secret information secret.
Yeah. I've gamified that. So all the games are out. He can see them. And like sometimes he pulls them out, but he can't. They're locked. He has to unlock them by doing different stuff. And so some of them like, hey bud, you can't unlock this till you learn to read. Like that's how you get this game. He's like, oh. And then as we're doing reading stuff, I'm transitioning out of just like the basic lessons into books. Now he'll read, some Dr. Seuss or, Cat in the Hat or Spooky Old Tree or whatever it is to me. And then I pull out Calvin and Hobbes, and we'll sit and read Calvin and Hobbes for 30 or 40 minutes. And he loves it. So
yeah, it was Garfield what my son reads. And I'm like, Jim Davis is from Muncie, Indiana, which is where your papa grew up. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, technically Garfield is set in my dad's hometown. Calvin and Hobbes, not so much, but Garfield, yeah. But yeah, your unlocking system, I think that's a great idea. And I wish I had that about 4 years ago as a system. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do it with the little one because, she's already going. But I might be able to, well, if you can do this or that, then you can unlock this game. That was a great idea in your book. Like I said, I wish I'd have had it just a few years earlier.
Wow.
So
use the little one. I mean, she can play with the pieces, but she can't actually play the game until she unlocks it.
Right. That's true.
Earned the game. Like, here's the pieces, so you don't get shiny object syndrome when you open it up. You're like, I'm going to run around with these dinosaurs. But, like, she's seen them, she's used to it, and she knows she wants to play it, and you and your son are playing it. And she's going to get to the point and be like, hey, Dad, like, I want to be dealt in. Like, sorry, babe. You haven't met the prereqs. Like, you need to learn Ticket to Ride first, or you need to, figure out how to read first. Like, your brother can read. That's why he can play this.
So do you have a lot of the My First and, My First Ticket to Ride or First Journey, Clue Junior? Do you have a lot of those type of games?
I only have a couple. And by a couple, I mean literally 2. I have My First Journey, the Ticket to Ride one, and we have the Castle Panic one.
Now, see, I think that the My First Journey Ticket to Ride is one of those games that is fantastic at teaching the mechanic of the game, but after the kid grasps it, they're ready to play the regular Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
And really, they should play My First Journey about 4 or 5 times. And then after that, they've got it, put it away. Because that's what we actually borrowed it from a friend, because I was trying to figure out if I was going to buy it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I borrowed it from a friend, and we played it all weekend. And then I was like, just out of curiosity, I brought out the big board, and the only thing that I had, like at the beginning, that I had to do with him is I had to kind of turn my head so he could see the cities in the path easier, because in the first journey there's pictures, there's words.
Yep. I
still think they should not use the Cubs for Chicago, but that's just me. But they put them on the card too, so you can look at the card and see you're trying to get from LA and Hollywood to the Chicago, the Cubs sign, so you can, the Cubs logo. And that was great. And like I said, we played it all weekend. And then after that, I'm like, I think he's ready. And he was. I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
Save myself $30.
Yeah. The only thing that you're missing is really the counting. right? So in my first ticket ride, you have to count to 6. It's just how many tickets you can complete. But the other one, then it's like the scoring aspect of it, and like 4 equals, 3 trains equals 4, and like that kind of more abstract math. And so being able to teach them that type of mechanic. But you're absolutely right. Like as far as just like a game mechanic, I think it's a phenomenal intro, and it's necessary to like continuously play it.
Yeah. And then what's funny about my first Castle Panic is Castle Panic was one of the, I'd say probably one of the first 5 or 6 games I played with my son.
Mm-hmm.
So once we, and it was kind of convoluted the first couple times as I'm teaching him, and we're learning the mechanic of trading and why, and then the game is so great at ruining your trades. All monsters moved. And he would be like, "But we just made this plan." I'm like, "And the game doesn't care, buddy."
No.
And so I've debated whether I have to pick up my first Castle Panic for my little one in like a year or two when she gets a little bigger, because I love Castle Panic. My son and I can't play it enough, so I've kind of gone back and forth him and Hall about whether or not I was going to get my first Castle Panic.
I think if she sees you guys playing Castle Panic and hangs out with you when you do it, I don't think you need my first Castle Panic. I mean,
all right,
it's a glorified matching game, right? Like, oh, this guy's on a red square. Do you have a red square in your hand? You do! Hooray! Like, there's plenty of other games that scratch that itch. I don't think Castle Panic is a necessary add to your library.
No, I do like Clue Junior. I find Clue Junior very entertaining because in that one, you're not so much playing as a character.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of, and then the beginning and the randomization, and you put all the yellows on all the furniture and all the whites on all the people, and then you got, but the process of elimination and learning how to do deductive reasoning, it's great. And we played that a lot, and then we played like one game of Clue so far because it's hard with the 2-year-old, when she goes to bed, and then it's kind of late and everything, but trying to get the wife and the son and I together, and we played Clue, and he really likes Clue, and I think Clue is a fantastic game, but I do think Clue Junior really helped with that deductive reasoning.
If you want to go one step further, Mystery Express, I think that's Days of Wonder as well, is it's good. And it's difficult. But it's on a train, and it's Clue-esque, and you move between boxcars and try to figure stuff out, and it's very difficult. But it's a lot of fun.
Well then.
And Scotland Yard is one of my guilty pleasures.
Oh.
There's not been a game that has given me more anxiety. If I'm Mr. X, I'm like, they're all around me, they're going to get me. And if I'm the detective, I'm like, he could be anywhere. It doesn't matter who I am, but it gives me the most anxiety. But it's so fun. Like, I as much as I can.
So that's like another classic Spiel des Jahres winning game. One of I don't know if it's the first head movement game, but man, Scotland Yard, whew. That's another one you can go to eBay and you can buy however much you want to spend, you can spend on Scotland Yard. Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
It's on the sweet spot for me is 2 players, right? I don't like playing with more than that. Here's the thing, right? Like it's like Pandemic or any of these other group games, I'm using air quotes, that like one person is like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and makes the plan and everyone does the thing. And I mean, you might as well play by yourself as the whole team. Right. And I feel like to be competitive in Scotland Yard, you have to do that. So I play, one guy's Mr. X, the other person is the guy with 4 detectives, and you just use them in order. So I do red, white, blue, and black, because sometimes I'm a doofus and it's easy for me to remember red, white, and blue, like the flag, right? Like that's how you do the colors. And then black comes at the end because where does black fit? Nowhere. So, it's easy to keep it organized, and there you go. And I feel like that's really competitive. I feel like 3 detectives is too hard. Mr. X just runs away, and 5 detectives is too easy, and he can't escape. But I feel like 4 is, for me, it's the sweet spot with my friends.
Nice. I'll have to. Yeah, I don't have Scotland Yard. I'll have to. I keep thinking that's one of those games I keep thinking is going to appear at a consignment shop. Like, come on, somebody is getting rid of their copy of Scotland Yard.
Oh no,
Come on.
the anxiety is delicious. I mean, I've, I've never been more stressed out playing a game in Scotland Yard. That's so good.
I want to play. I played Scotland Yard a lot growing up. My neighbor had it, and I've been like, I kind of want to get that Spectre Ops because it kind of looks like the new Scotland Yard. Like one guy's the spy in there trying to steal the information, and everybody else is trying to see him. And I'm like, that one looks like fun. But there's another good hidden movement game. It's called Liberation, and it's an 18 card 1v1 game. You can get off PNP Arcade for like $3, so you just got to print it out and cut it up yourself. But it's a fun hidden movement game. You get a little anxiety, like you start to get a little bit, but not like Scotland Yard. Not where you've got the bag like in the cartoons. Nothing crazy like that. But Mystery Express is one I'm going to have to look into. Scotland Yard, I'm going to have to try to see if I can track down. Like I said, that
Express. It's Clue on steroids. It's so good.
I don't know how I haven't heard of that one, so I'll have to give that one a look. So many good games out there, so little time, or more like so little shelf space is more the issue.
So you played a decent amount of games growing up, right? Like some of the more obscure old ones. So I can't for the life remember. There's like this big it's egregious. It's like 4 or 5 feet by 4 or 5 feet, like vinyl type mat that rolls out or folds out. And you have these rectangular square, I guess placeholders that you let the people in. And there's like it's a 2-player game. One is like orcs and like death knights and stuff.
And you're like flipping the deck.
Yes. What is that game called?
I believe it's called Battle Masters.
Oh, I think you're right. And there's like a tower that you can put together that sits in the middle of the map.
And you can climb up the tower and shoot from the tower, and then you flip the deck. Pretty sure it's called Battle Masters, and the reason why I know that, let me see if I can find it, because I played it at our Geekway here in St. Louis, is our big game convention, and somebody was demoing or had it. As soon as you said the big vinyl mat, I'm like, oh, is it going to be Battle Masters?
I mean, it's asinine how much space it takes up. But
oh man, it's 2 tables pushed together.
It's so awful. But I mean, so many good childhood memories of me and my brother playing Battle Masters on the floor together. Right? Like, if I had a hidden gem, Battle Masters, that's the hidden gem. Like, I don't ever see it anywhere, and it's just massive, and it's old, and it's cool. It's a cool game. I think you're right. I'm gonna have to look that up. But yes, I've been trying to remember like what it's called and find it because I want to get a copy for myself and play with my kids. And
oh man, they'll love it because you have to pretty much play it on the floor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, and it's easy too, right? Like you flip the card, and that's the guy that gets to move.
Yep.
It's like, and my brother would always give me the ogre, and when the ogre activates, he gets like, he's got his own 9 deck of cards or whatever, and it's like,
he gets to swing. Yeah.
It's either move or attack.
Swing away.
So I'll get all my attacks first, and I'll be out of range, and I'll be like, no, I don't want to run him in now. Like, no.
Yeah.
So good.
I had never played it until Geekway, and it's 2 tables pushed together. The vinyl match is sitting out in the middle, and
oh yeah, and it had a campaign, which was just the coolest thing, right? Like, that tells you how to set the guys up for each mission and who wins and loses. Like, you carry over, and your guys kind of level up, and they get better. It's just like, I'm in. Like, I'm all in. Like, you sell me on a thematic game, and I'm there. And this game just had it in spades.
Oh yeah, and it's so, and like I wanted to buy it so bad to play with my son, but we have 2 dogs, a cat. Now I've got a 2-year-old. I'm like, I don't think I need this many little pieces because I'm gonna have anxiety playing it. Don't lose the spire, Don't lose the part of the sword.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because you can like throw the cannonball and it like goes different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And
I forgot again. I think remembering these. Oh man, the bouncing cannonball.
Oh yeah. Oh, so good.
It really is.
So yeah, the cannonball deck.
And I'm gonna go over two of my own dude and hope it doesn't hit him, and it'll like only bounce on your guys and fly over there. He's like, no.
Yep. They all have like their own number on the back on to attack and defend. Oh yeah. Oh. Well, I'm gonna write that down as another eBay search.
Oh man,
we just got to make sure we're not bidding on the same one.
Tell you what, if you buy it, you get a hold of me and I'll come play it with you. Like, yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've started like for my own my birthday. The family stopped like getting me gifts, and I go on Kickstarter and I fund a gift for myself. I'm like, I want this again. This is my gift to me this year. Like, I don't need a drill or a vacuum or something like. Give Daddy a board game that he wants. We're gonna go to Kickstarter.
Yeah, I try. That's the problem, right? There's so many to back, and there's so many good ones, and then there's so many that do I back it? Do I not? And then it always seems to be the one that you say and then you don't back it. It's the one you should have backed. And then you back one that you have backers remorse. You ever get that where you pay so much for the game and then you're like, nah, this isn't worth it?
I've only just started actually. So, well, I always went to in Seattle, there was a board game shop called Blue Highway. It's still there. But I lived like a block away from it with my
that would be dangerous.
Roommates. Oh, yeah. So every Tuesday night, we'd walk over to Blue Highway and we'd take a game off their game shelf and we'd play it. And it was legit, like having these board game cafe places. You can just like, you don't have to buy a game to figure it out if it's a waste of money or, awesome. And I mean, we gamed all the time. And the time I got married, I had like 60 or 70 games, I think, just everywhere. My wife's like, this is not sustainable. Like one of the house rules is I can only get one new game a month. Like, I had a problem. So,
I mean, that's legit though. That's still 12 new games a year.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that rule. It's just the first step is right. Like, okay, I have a problem. So, I've really pared down the collection. I think I have like 30 games now. It's kind of like what I either want to save to have future on with my kids to play, or games that I think are just a lot of fun. And I hardly buy games anymore.
The problem I had, so at the beginning of the pandemic, I had like 2 or 3 games I hadn't played, but I knew I was going to play a lot of games with just my son.
Yep.
And so I got a lot of the Ticket to Ride the cities, so like Ticket to Ride London, Ticket to Ride what was the other one? New York.
Right.
I mean, we played the tar out of those games. I to the point where I pre-ordered Ticket to Ride Amsterdam because I'm like, well, I'm going to buy it. I might as well just pre-order the thing and not even have to worry about it. And so I did from our local game shop. But then it was like Pandemic Rapid Response came out, and so I picked that up at Target because Target put it on sale like right at the start of the pandemic. And I'm like, you have a game called Pandemic in a pandemic. I don't think now's the time to put it on sale. People are going to buy it. Then I picked up another game. And then after that, it was like all downhill because I started playing with my friends and family over Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
And so started off playing like Yahtzee, and, you can only play so much Yahtzee.
Yep.
And then we watch a lot of board game YouTube channels. And one of them was talking about this roll and write called a third one in the series was coming out. And so I was like, ooh, what are the other two? And it's the Gone Sean Clever, the Clever series by Wolfgang Kramer. Since that time, I've bought Gone Sean Clever, or That's Pretty Clever. I bought it for my brother. I bought it for my sister. 2 of my friends have bought it. And it's like Yahtzee, but way different because there's no downtime, right? Because with kids, downtime is runaway time.
Yep.
In Yahtzee, you do your roll, and then you run around until grandma and grandpa and everybody does their roll, and you come back and do your roll. But with the Clever games, you score your dice, and then I still score a die on your turn. And so I have to stay engaged so I can pick which one of your die that you don't use I want to use. And then you play and you unlock things. Well, then I got just sucked down this rabbit hole of rolling rides.
Sure.
And then then I was doing this podcast, and then I get sucked into buying a bunch more games, and then next thing I know, I'm like buying so many that my wife's like, "Hey, you got to stop." And then I changed jobs, which the worst part about changing jobs was I had to go get all my board games from my office and bring them home.
Busted.
Yeah. But that's kind of, the roll and rights, any kind of like dice game like that you can play over Zoom. I was playing with my buddies at lunch. We'd play it because, we just made our lunch hours overlap, and then we just play games together.
Sure.
And so that was always, that's where it just, my buying of board games over the pandemic just spiraled out of control. Yeah. And then for a long time, I wasn't backing a lot of stuff on Kickstarter. And then just here lately, I kind of got back into it, and I'm like, this is why I had to stop.
Yeah, I would love to get into Jaws the Lion in Gloomhaven. My buddy has Jaws, and we've been playing that together, and that's a lot of fun. But, I mean, those are games that you could play via Zoom as well. They have, like, the apps and stuff that you can, like, merge them together. And again, I'm a sucker for thematic, and they did it. They did it right.
I think it's called Hack and Slash, and it's by Steve Jackson Games, the guy behind Munchkin.
Yeah.
It was advertised in the magazine as a game you can play over Zoom. Like, they advertised it that way.
Wow.
And I'm like, genius thinking right there.
Yeah.
I haven't bought it because I'm like, no, but I bought like 5 other games instead. So like, I could have spent like $18 on that game, but instead I spent like $100, and look at all this. Yeah. Look how much more I got.
More for more, I say.
I spent more and got more. Yeah. But yeah, like we were talking before we started recording. I've been scouring like the consignment shops, but Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. Man, I've picked up a lot of crazy good deals off of that as well. So my collection's growing by leaps and bounds. And here, like, I was getting ready to like slim it down and try to buy less, and I've gone the exact opposite direction.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I had no intention of buying board games during this call, but now I have to go get a copy of Grass and Mille Bornes, and I need to go scour for Battle Masters again, so I'm there.
Yeah, Battle Masters. Now you've rekindled my search for Battle Masters, that's for sure. I'll have to go back and try to find.
I mean, there's games that you play as a kid, and you're like, that was so good, and Battle Masters is one of those. And I mean, I played Rail Baron, and that is a bear of a game. Rail Baron is just. It's forever, but it's very cool, but tedious.
I don't think I played that. A lot of those older, like the railroad games, I haven't really got into. So, like all the 18XX games, they're just too expensive when they come out, and they come out at the wrong time to where I'm like not really looking to spend a whole lot of money on a game. So I don't.
Yep. For me,
I ran it back in.
Yeah. I mean, as an adult, Rail Baron's is like, meh, it's okay. But as a kid, it was really cool because it was like the game that our buddies had. So my brother would go over to their house, and we'd play with their 2 brothers, and all play Rail Baron together. So it's like the nostalgia factor. But I don't think it's a game that would be like, hey, man, you get this or you're missing out. Like, get the farming game. Like, just live defeat every round. Like, it's so good.
Like, that was one I've been trying to find, and then one that somebody else talked about was called like the gardening game, and like you had like styrofoam plate, like that was your garden, was a piece of styrofoam, and you put these like seed packets in your styrofoam as that was the game. Like you're trying to collect seeds and stuff. I'm like, that game I cannot find. I found it on Board Game Geek. It is a real game, so I know that she's not like crazy, but finding it has been like impossible. So, Steve, I'd like to thank you for being on my show. I highly recommend your book, The Guide to Board Gaming Getting Past Candyland. It's on Amazon. It is only $2. I wasn't going to say that, but since you did, I'll go ahead and repeat it. It's only $2. Like go get it.
Bear books. I mean, it's not a brain beater. Like, I'm no mental giant. So,
it's a little heavier than Berenstein Bears, but it's definitely not much more.
Yeah.
Not much more. But it is a great read, especially if you have kids and you're trying to figure out how to get them into gaming. even if you have kids, how to get, the unlocking system is fantastic. I might try to implement that with my son. He is 9. Try to get him going on that. So you can reach Steven at gamehunterlibrary@gmail.com. And as always, you can reach me at facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame or email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3cmedia and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.